The Villainess read the comments. Welcome to Daily Storyvids. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more exclusive stories handpicked by yours truly. Now back to the story. Chapter 1. Arthur Sterling was autistic. I was the fiancée his family had chosen for him. Every night I would strip off his pants and climb into his bed. He had resisted at first. Eventually he just stopped. I thought that meant he was starting to feel something for me too. Then one night, just as I reached for his waistband, lines of text flooded my vision, live comments streaming in from nowhere. Look at what she's putting the ML through. This side character is so desperate. Just wait till the FL shows up, his condition actually starts improving. I remember this part. This side character's family goes bankrupt later. She literally freezes to death on the street because she tried to go up against the FL. Delusional, she actually thinks the ML's in love with her. My blood went cold. I let go of his waistband. Actually, not tonight. Arthur's face gave away nothing, same as always. The man had ironclad self-control, even with me in his bed. All this time I told myself it was just his condition, that somewhere under all that silence, he still felt something for me. It had never crossed my mind that he didn't want me at all. What if those comments were right? A chill crawled up my spine. I was not about to freeze to death on some sidewalk. Arthur looked down at me, frowning. I knew that look, confused, annoyed. Before I would have gone straight to him, wrapped myself around him, pouted, and coaxed him until he kissed me. Not anymore. Without those comments, I never would have known how much he despised me. I mean it, I'm really not in the mood. And since you never wanted me sleeping in your bed anyway, I'll just move to the guest room. I scrambled off the bed and grabbed my things. I needed him to understand. I wasn't going to force myself on him anymore. The comments blew up again. Wait, why's the side character suddenly acting different? Is she playing hard to get? Ugh, when is our girl finally showing up? The ML's condition keeps getting worse, and this side character still crawls into his bed every night. She's literally making him worse. Fun fact, the ML works out every day specifically, so he can physically throw her out when the time comes. No rush, her family goes bankrupt later anyway. Okay, I did feel a little guilty. Autism or not, Arthur was built hours working out every single day. I used to think it was because of me. I told him once that I liked men with a solid chest. Had he only been getting strong enough to throw me out himself? Fine, yes, I lusted after him. Yes, I crawled into his bed every night, but his mother was the one who told me to. Was that really such a crime? Arthur said nothing. He rolled over, pulled the blanket up and turned his back to me. That was his answer. He didn't even want to look at me. Something sharp twisted in my chest. He really didn't want me. Fine, staying alive was a hell of a lot more important than being wanted. Chapter 2. The next morning, I actually woke up feeling rested. Every night before, I'd been the one initiating, and even though he never seemed willing once he started, the man didn't stop. I woke up sore every single morning. Now that I didn't have to share his bed, my whole body felt lighter. Clearly, I'd never been built for him, and honestly, a man that intense was too much for me to handle. Arthur's mother, Mrs. Sterling, to everyone else, had insisted I call her Mom since I was a little girl. Mrs. Sterling spoiled me rotten, gave me whatever I wanted and never said no. She swore a psychic had predicted our marriage, and that being with me would help with Arthur's condition. So she went to my parents and begged them to let me move in. My parents' company was struggling at the time, and Mrs. Sterling's offer was impossible to turn down. My mom sat me down and asked whether I'd be willing to marry Arthur someday. I was young and completely shallow. All it took was a pretty face. Arthur had been gorgeous since childhood, and unlike most people, he only got more unfairly attractive as he grew up, so I nodded without thinking twice. Basically, I sold myself for a jawline. My parents never forgave themselves for it. They never had another child. They just poured everything into building me a safety net, making sure I'd never need anyone else's money. By now, my bank account had enough zeros to last me several lifetimes without the Sterlings, but Arthur was too damn pretty. Not once had I considered calling it off. Mrs. Sterling seemed happier with every year I stayed. By the time Arthur and I were both in college, our engagement was official. Looking back, Arthur had never actually agreed to any of it. Mrs. Sterling arranged everything. Of course he hated me. He'd been stuck with a fiancé he never chose, forced to see my face every day while I clung to him like he owed me love. No wonder he'd been icing me out for years. Mrs. Sterling spotted me and waved, beaming, "Come sit down, sweetheart." Arthur was already at the table, perfectly calm like last night hadn't happened. His eyes flicked to me and my stomach tightened. Is the side character seriously about to sit next to the ML again? He looked so relieved he finally got one night off from dealing with her. Watch, she's gonna sit right next to him and ruin his whole morning. Before, I would have planted myself right next to Arthur, made him fix my plate and cater to my every whim. He never looked happy about it, but he did it. I'd convinced myself that meant something. Turns out he just didn't have a choice. I sighed and looked at Mrs. Sterling's warm, hopeful expression. I was about to break her heart. I slid into the seat beside Mrs. Sterling instead. Everyone in the dining room turned toward me, including Arthur. Mrs. Sterling lit up. She'd always felt guilty about how cold her son was to me. She knew Arthur was stone cold. But I'd been too lovesick to notice, always chasing his approval instead of accepting hers. She started piling food onto my plate before I could even unfold my napkin. Across the table, Arthur dropped his gaze once before he set his fork down. "I'm done." Arthur only ever said something when I'd pushed him too far. If he was leaving this quietly, he had to be thrilled. For once, I wasn't glued to his side. That familiar ache flared in my chest. Mrs. Sterling didn't even look his way. She finished breakfast with me like we were the only two people in the room, then dragged me out for a shopping spree. The shopping trip actually helped. We bought so much my arms were shaking by the time we got back, and Mrs. Sterling floated off for her beauty sleep the second we walked through the door. I handed the bags to the butler and headed for my guest room. When I got to the door, Arthur was standing there holding a steaming mug of herbal tea and a heating pad. Chapter 3. Before all this, whenever I came home and saw Arthur, I'd launch myself at him. If he wouldn't let me hug him, I'd smack his arm, just a tiny swat, purely on principle. That was usually when he'd give in, scoop me up bridal style without a word, carry me to bed, and bring over a bottle of massage oil to rub my feet. Oh my God, I'd actually done that to him. No wonder Arthur wanted me gone. Arthur set the oil down and held out his hand. I wasn't wearing my glasses, his expression blurred into nothing, but even without seeing his eyes, my nerves still spiked. So I reached out and shook his hand, politely, like we just closed a business deal. Maybe that meant we were good. Arthur let out a slow breath and closed his eyes. "Chloe, you're acting strange. You're the one who asks for this every night, so what's going on? Are you playing games with me? Is this some kind of joke? Did I do something wrong?" I couldn't remember the last time Arthur had said so many words at once. I was used to reading his eyes, guessing what he meant from a look, a frown, the smallest shift in his face. And now he was actually opening up. Maybe I could just... She's definitely playing hard to get. She used to love getting foot rubs from the ML. She even posted about it, saying she had the best husband. Now he's losing his patience. If she says yes, the ML will know for sure she's playing games. Once the FL shows up, this side character is toast. The comments snapped me right out of it. I pulled my foot back before it could reach his hands. God, he was unfairly beautiful. Even this close, his skin was flawless, like he was carved from marble. I stared for a beat too long and my stupid heart gave another flutter. No, no, Chloe Thorne, have some self-respect. I snapped myself out of it, looked at Arthur, and forced on the most painfully polite smile of my life. "You know what, you really don't have to rub my feet anymore. I think we need boundaries. Even if we really do get married someday, I should respect your space. I can take care of myself." That was the most mature thing I'd ever said in my entire life, and I meant every word I was getting out. Losing a husband was one thing, dying in the street was another. "Are you still mad? Because I went out yesterday without telling you." He'd let the question hang in the air for a long time, just watching me. When I didn't answer, he turned and walked away. What was that even about? I furrowed my brow. Had I ever asked him to check in with me? I didn't think so. What a strange man. Chapter 4. I slept like the dead that night, and I dreamed about the guy from the romance game. I'd been obsessed with, some cold, untouchable CEO type. The premium route I'd spent actual money unlocking. He was ice cold at the start, but once I chose another love interest, he came crawling back, jealous, desperate, the whole redemption arc. God, I lived for that. Watching a man who thought he was above it all finally beg. Chef's kiss. Arthur would never do that, though. He didn't even like me, there was nothing there to chase. Wait, why was I projecting Arthur onto him again? I should have been dreaming about Julian Vance, my sweet, perfect Julian. Julian, don't go. I mumbled into the pillow and hugged it closer, still half asleep. Except since when did pillows radiate heat? A hand caught my chin and tipped my face up, dragging me out of the dream. I blinked. Was that Arthur? It was him. My eyes flew open. He'd climbed into my bed. Before I could process that, Arthur read the shock on my face, his gaze dropping to my lips as he shifted his weight over me. I could barely breathe under him. So you're done playing around and now you've moved on to some guy named Julian. Is that it? What was he talking about? His fingers traced my jaw feather-light. His face was dead serious, the kind of intensity I'd never seen from him before. My heart stuttered. Was he jealous? Talk, don't lie to me, I can always tell when you're lying. I swallowed hard. Maybe it'd be better to just tell him the truth. It's happening, the breakup scene, the side character. About to say Julian's real to make the ML. Jealous, but the ML sees right through it and breaks off the engagement and says the Sterling family doesn't need a lying daughter-in-law. Yes, after tonight the FL is finally coming to the city. Only she can actually get through to him. If it weren't for what happened when they were kids, the ML wouldn't even, they're literally soulmates. ML's grandfather fell in love with the FL's grandmother while he was working as a farmhand as a young man. They got separated, but before he left, he gave her the family heirloom locket and promised their families would be joined by marriage someday. Once that comes out, the side character gets exposed as the wrong girl and gets kicked to the curb. Childhood incident, family heirloom locket, I froze. The explanation on the tip of my tongue died right there. I'd always wondered what was behind Arthur's condition. His family was loving and stable, no history of anything like that. It had never made sense. I'd asked him about it once. That was the only time he'd ever lost his temper with me, and I'd pushed every boundary he had over the years. He was furious, didn't speak to me for a full week, and nothing I said or did could coax him out of it. It wasn't until my birthday, when I blew out the candles and told him my only wish was for him to forgive me, that he finally let it go. Answer me, Chloe. His fingertips pressed against my lips. His eyes darkened, and he was close, so close it brought back every time he'd ever kissed me. For a second I thought he was going to kiss me. But the comments flashed through my head and I flinched. I turned my face away. Yeah, I like him, I want to be with him. Let's call off the engagement. I wasn't lying, not really. The comments made it clear I was never the one for him, so maybe it was better to give him what he wanted now, before things got worse. If I walked away now, at least it wouldn't end badly. I didn't want us destroying each other in the end. What did you just say? Chapter 5. Was he deaf? I'd already said it once and he was making me say it again. Ripping off a band-aid only hurts once. He was using the fact that I liked him to walk all over me, and just like that, my inner spoiled brat flared up. We weren't officially over yet, so what if I got a little petty? I gave myself a mental shake, opened my eyes and glared at him. I said I want to break off the engagement. You are completely emotionally unavailable all day, you never want to do anything, and every time I ask you for anything, you act like it's some huge chore. I don't want this anymore, we're done, and if you have a problem with that, actually you probably don't have a problem with that, so yeah, we're done. I squeezed my eyes shut the second I finished. Not for dramatic effect, I was genuinely terrified he might strangle me. Apparently I'd given myself too much credit. I couldn't see his face. I only heard that single, hollow laugh after a long silence. It sounded like something echoing down the hall of an empty vault. No, Arthur had to be happy about this. I'd done him a favor. He could finally walk away, no more putting up with me clinging to him every day. His grip on me loosened. The warmth of his breath disappeared. I opened my eyes. Arthur had rolled off me and was sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me. Did you mean that? You really want to end this? How badly did he want out if he needed to hear it twice? The brat in me kicked in again. I nodded sharply. Yeah, you don't like me and I don't like you either. There's no point. Whatever happened between us, let's just chalk it up to physical needs. We're adults. It's not a big deal, right? I said all that and he didn't move, didn't turn around, didn't react, like none of it had even registered. Since he clearly wasn't going to leave, I scrambled off the bed myself. You can stay here, I'll take another guest room. Nothing, I took his silence as a yes. Maybe I imagined it, but right before the door clicked shut, I could have sworn his shoulders had been shaking. It didn't matter, the words were out, there was no taking them back. I collapsed onto the guest bed. If Mrs. Sterling found out I was the one who ended it, would she take back the deal she'd made with my family? Would she see it as me going back on my word? But Arthur genuinely didn't want me. She couldn't expect her son to stay trapped in this forever. I turned it over and over in my head and got nowhere. Finally, I decided to just go home and talk to my parents. Chapter 6. I slipped out early the next morning while the Sterling house was still sleeping. I'd texted my parents the night before, but neither of them replied, not even when I was standing at their front door. Our housekeeper wasn't live-in, so I figured no one would be around to answer the door this early. I let myself in with the smart lock. The second I stepped inside, I found both my parents sitting on the couch, waiting for me like they'd set an ambush. I felt instantly guilty. Mom, Dad, you're up early. Is something going on at work? I hadn't even gotten to the real reason yet, but the way they were looking at me made my palms sweat. Dad tapped the marble coffee table. Sit. I sat, hands in my lap, back straight, full good daughter mode. Okay, what's going on? Just say it. Mom let out a dry laugh. Kids grow up and suddenly think their parents can't read them anymore. Honey, I've known you since before you could talk. I can tell what you're about to pull before you even open your mouth. You texted last night saying you were coming home, and you showed up at the crack of dawn. Something big is going on. She had me, and honestly this was exactly why I'd come home. I want to call off my engagement to Arthur. The words came out smaller than I meant them to. The living room went dead silent. Was this too sudden? Did our family still need the Sterling partnership to stay afloat? Arthur hadn't met the FL yet, so technically it should be fine, right? Or should I wait a little longer? I bit my lip. Right as I was about to backpedal, Dad stood and walked toward me. My brain stalled. Was he about to yell at me? I flinched, but his hand landed on my shoulder and he was grinning. Finally, my lovesick daughter finally came to her senses. We paid back every cent of the Sterling investment years ago. We even put it in writing that if Arthur ever treated you badly, we could call off the engagement at any time. Mom chimed in. Look, Arthur's a good kid, smart, well-mannered, the whole package. But you've been a drama queen since you were 5. Were you two ever really going to work? Your dad and I always thought you two were mismatched, but you were so obsessed with him that we were afraid to say anything. Now that you're the one bringing it up, honestly, we're relieved. My eyes strung. They'd never blamed me. They'd planned for this, protected me the whole time. It's your call, sweetheart, and if Mrs. Sterling gives you any trouble, just come to us. I hadn't even finished tearing up before Mom waved me off, her face scrunched in feigned annoyance. You're a grown woman and you're crying. Anyway, your dad and I are heading to Silver Lake in a few days. I've been dying for that beef Wellington we had last time. Don't bother us unless someone's actually dying. I had no words. Fine, tears officially cancelled. Chapter 7. I dragged myself back to the Sterling house around noon. Mrs. Sterling had texted asking where I'd gone, and I told her I was at my parents' place. She asked if I'd be back for lunch. I'd assumed Mom would at least feed me before kicking me out, so I told her I'd be back for dinner. Mom kicked me out before I even had a chance to sit down. I texted Mrs. Sterling on the way back, but she didn't reply. The kitchen always made extra for lunch anyway, so at least I wouldn't starve. I pushed the door open and froze. The house was full of people, Arthur's grandfather, his aunts, basically the whole extended family. But the thing that stopped me cold was the girl sitting on the couch. She was dressed simply, nothing flashy, but she radiated warmth, the kind of effortless brightness that lit up a room. And she'd already had Arthur's grandfather laughing like I'd never seen him laugh. So this was the legendary FL. Arthur's grandfather had never smiled like that around me. The man could barely stand me. Every time I visited, he threw thinly veiled jabs about how I was too wild, too loud, too much. Mrs. Sterling always shut him down. She'd been close with Arthur's late grandmother, and that gave her leverage. Especially after the old man tried to marry a woman 30 years younger, and Mrs. Sterling tore him apart so badly, he never brought it up again. Whenever the old man went after me, Arthur used to take my hand under the table, lead me back to our room, and let me hide out in there while he went out on his own. I used to think that was his way of protecting me. Now I figured he'd probably agreed with every word. Finally the FL is here. The ML was actually smiling when he talked to her just now, like, genuinely gentle. But why is the side character suddenly being all mature and talking to her parents about the breakup? Is this supposed to be a redemption arc or something? Probably just playing hard to get. Thank God Grandpa's team FL, because with Mrs. Sterling being so biased toward the side character, how else would the ML ever end up with the right girl? Honestly, Mrs. Sterling's kind of annoying too. How did ML's dad end up marrying someone like her? Mrs. Sterling had been nothing but good to me, that was a fact. These commenters dragging her name through the mud were crossing a line. She was genuinely kind, even the staff adored her. The commenters were trash. Are you kidding me? I snapped out loud at the comments like an idiot before I remembered the entire living room was full of people. I slapped a hand over my mouth. Too late, every head in the room turned toward me, but Mrs. Sterling just broke into a smile and waved. Chloe, get over here, I've been waiting forever. Good thing I told the kitchen to make extra, or you'd be going hungry. Arthur's grandfather scoffed. Some people are always gallivanting around. My grandson deserves better than that. Now Harper here, she's a real lady. Wouldn't you say so, Arthur? I looked at Arthur. He and Harper Hayes were the only two on the long couch, but he was sitting as far away from her as possible, a careful gap between them, being a gentleman probably. His eyes found mine across the room and my chest tightened. What was he going to say? Would he side with his grandfather, like I now suspected he secretly always had? Nobody else in that room knew it, but Arthur and I both understood this engagement was over. He didn't answer his grandfather. He just stood up and walked toward me. Chapter 8. Arthur stopped right in front of me and held out his hand. Come on, there's someone I want you to meet. What, when did this turn into a meet and greet? I just stood there. Arthur sighed, reached over and took my hand himself. He pulled me forward like that, right into the center of the room, stunned silence and all. Mrs. Sterling was beaming so hard her eyes crinkled, radiating pure maternal joy. Harper looked caught off guard, her eyes darting between Arthur and me. Arthur's grandfather went pale with rage and pounded his cane against the floor. Arthur, what is the meaning of this? She isn't Sterling yet. Every instinct told me to back away. The old man's face was terrifying. I was half convinced that the cane was about to come flying at my head. But Arthur dropped my hand, only to wrap his arm around my waist instead. Grandfather, she's the one I chose, and she's the only one I'll ever marry. If you want any part in my future, don't say another word against her. That last line landed like a threat because it was one. Arthur's grandfather sputtered, face blotched with fury, until Harper went over and gently rubbed his shoulder, trying to calm him down. Mrs. Sterling sat through the whole thing without so much as blinking. She calmly asked the kitchen for another cup of chamomile tea. Arthur's grandfather glared daggers at her. Mrs. Sterling laughed. Dad, I was just about to transfer the money for that trip you wanted next month. The old man shut his mouth. His glare shifted to me instead. Arthur stepped in front of me without a word. This was the first time he'd ever claimed me in public, in front of everyone, no hesitation. Back in college, whenever someone asked whether we were together, he'd look away. He'd close up like he'd rather not answer. But we were supposed to be breaking up. Why would he say all that? What is this garbage plot? The FL is right THERE and the ML completely ignores her to protect the side character in front of everyone. I'm fuming. If this doesn't end with a grovel arc, I'm giving it 1 star. Relax lol, it's literally the first time the ML and FL have met. He's probably just keeping attention off her for now. The Sterling engagement party is coming up, they'll swap her in then. Am I the only one who thinks the ML and the side character actually have chemistry? A hot mess ex-cold CEO is literally a top-tier trope. Plus, when the ML was talking to the FL earlier, he kept bringing up the side character, just saying, "Non-canon shippers get out, delusional shippers get out, all of you get out." Wait, were the comments fighting with each other now? That was actually kind of entertaining. I sat back and watched the drama unfold like a live show. Arthur's grandfather caught the look on my face, and his scowl deepened. From the way he looked at Harper, it wasn't hard to guess he felt he owed her something. She was his old friend's granddaughter, and Arthur was his pride and joy. Arthur had turned out exceptional, even though the old man had barely had a hand in raising him. Sterling genes, clearly. The problem, apparently, was stubborn brat Arthur. Why couldn't the boy see his grandfather was only looking out for him? Harper was everything a grandfather could want, smart, poised, perfect for Arthur. Chloe was spoiled and lazy. There was no comparison. "I'm feeling awful over here, and you can't even be bothered to fetch me a cup of tea. Is that any way for the future Mrs. Sterling to behave?" He didn't dare push too far with Mrs. Sterling in the room. She held the purse strings, and his monthly travel budget depended entirely on staying in her good graces. But surely she couldn't stop him from making the girl fetch him a simple cup of tea. I froze. The problem was I had no idea how to prepare a proper cup of tea. I'd tried to learn once and my parents told me not to bother. Arthur could handle things like that. I was still standing there, agonizing, when Harper spoke up. "Mr. Sterling, your stomach, already acting up, tea will only make it worse. Here, have some water instead." Before the old man could argue, a glass of water was already placed firmly on the table beside him. He'd been so thoroughly outmaneuvered he couldn't get a word out. When no one was looking, Harper glanced my way. She winked. The FL was actually kind of great. I'd expected the whole catfight trope, but something told me she wasn't interested in Arthur at all. That was weird. If she didn't want Arthur, then why was she here? Harper and I kept trying to communicate through increasingly frantic eye contact. Neither of us understood the other, but it was weirdly fun, except Arthur kept stepping into my line of sight, which was incredibly annoying. Chapter 9. Wait, why is the FL being so nice to the side character? She literally bylaid her out back there, and the side character didn't even start any drama. This plot makes no sense. Something feels off. It is weird though, the FL hasn't even talked to the ML. She just hangs out with the side character all day, shopping and grabbing food. The ML is literally abandoned. Why is this so funny to me, Amau? Yep, the comments were right. The FL and I became best friends. After that day, Harper didn't give Arthur a second glance. She spent all her time with me instead. We talked about books, mostly novels, and I couldn't believe how much we had in common. We'd stay up half the night talking, and for the first time in weeks I barely thought about Arthur at all. But the engagement still hung over everything. One night when I suggested Harper and I have another sleepover, Arthur's eyes cut to her ice cold. Then he turned to me. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I glanced at Harper, who looked deeply unimpressed. The comments rolled in right on cue. Are they finally having it out? The side character. Been hogging the FL this whole time. The ML must be going crazy. Just break off the engagement already and give us the actual romance. Otb supremacy. I really didn't want to talk to Arthur right now. His eyes looked like they could eat me alive. It wasn't like I was clinging to Harper on purpose, so why was he staring at me like I'd committed a crime? Caught between the two of them staring me down, I cracked. "You know what, I'm not feeling great tonight. You two go ahead and talk." And then I bolted. I found out later that after I left, Arthur turned to Harper, the woman he clearly thought had stolen my attention. In that moment, his condition, his composure, none of it seemed to matter. Apparently all he knew was that if he didn't handle this, he was going to lose me entirely. He laughed, short, cold, and ruder than Harper said she'd ever seen him. "You're really something, Harper. My fiancée is young, she is easily led astray sometimes, but you should know better. Maybe take a moment and remember why you're in this house." Harper told me later she couldn't stand him. She'd heard everything, every story I'd told her about how cold he was, how he ignored me, how he never once made me feel wanted. How could I marry someone like that? Funny, because you're not exactly fiancé of the year either. Too bad Chloe actually likes spending time with me, says I'm the most fun she's had in years. What does that tell you? Arthur had no comeback for that. Harper scoffed, turned on her heel and walked back to her room. Meanwhile, I was sprawled across the bed binge-watching some show, blissfully unaware that World War III had just broken out down the hall. Chapter 10. Arthur's condition had improved significantly. The family doctor confirmed it after a follow-up appointment, and the room erupted into a chaotic mix of reactions. The older Sterlings were thrilled, obviously, but Arthur's face was strange, something I couldn't read, and me, I felt the floor drop out from under me. The comments had been right, they'd been right all along. Part of me had been holding out, hoping none of it was true, but now Harper glanced between Arthur and me and gave a quiet scoff. That strung, she was my friend now, and she was the one who'd somehow helped Arthur get better. They were clearly meant for each other, and I had no business standing in their way. I still had to tell Mrs. Sterling. If I handled it carefully, she wouldn't be angry, and she definitely wouldn't ruin my family over it. Right. Once the room cleared out, I lingered. Mrs. Sterling was at the table, going over reports for tomorrow's meeting. I crept over and sat down beside her. She knew right away. What's wrong? Did Arthur do something? Mrs. Sterling closed her laptop and turned to face me. Her eyes were so gentle they nearly broke me. All the anxiety I'd been carrying for days rushed straight to the surface, and I felt the tears building before I could stop them. I used to run to her over every little thing, didn't matter how petty it was. She always took my side and Arthur always got an earful. And now I was about to lose her. I didn't even know if she'd still want to see me after everything was over. She must have seen my eyes turning red, because she grabbed a box of tissues immediately. Hey, what's with the tears? If Arthur been giving you a hard time, just tell me. I was actually wondering why you hadn't come venting to me about him lately. Have you been bottling it up this whole time? Spill, whatever he did, I'll handle him. I kept wiping, but the tears came faster. Every ounce of fear and hurt I'd been swallowing for weeks was pouring out at once. Mrs. Sterling started to get up, and I couldn't let her spiral with me. Mum, I want to call off the engagement. The words hung in the air. Mrs. Sterling went still for a moment, then sighed like she'd been expecting this. Is it because of Harper? I shook my head. No, it's not about her. Even if she'd never shown up, I think I'd still be doing this. Because Arthur was the sun, beautiful from a distance, impossible to hold. Getting too close would only burn me alive, and we were like day and night, sharing the same sky, but never meant to meet. He didn't want me, and I wanted to stop pretending he did. Mrs. Sterling didn't ask anything else. She just reached over and brushed my hair back from my forehead. I promised your parents a long time ago if you weren't happy we'd let you go. So go, and Chloe, marriage or not, you've always been my daughter. Mrs. Sterling was genuinely the best person I knew. I headed upstairs, still wiping my eyes, and turned the corner, straight into Arthur and Harper. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. A gorgeous man and a beautiful woman standing close in a dim hallway. They looked perfect together. My eyes burned all over again. Oh, come on. It's been, what, a week? Could you two seriously not keep your hands off each other? Chapter 11. Think about what I said. Harper tossed the words over her shoulder as she hurried past me, giving my hand a quick squeeze before she disappeared. Just Arthur and me. His condition had been improving steadily. He could hold conversations now, interact with people like it was nothing. I had nothing to say to him. Mrs. Sterling had already given me her blessing. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to make it official. I turned to leave before he could say anything, but his hand closed around my wrist. The hallway was dark, and his eyes looked startlingly bright. He pulled me into his room. The lock clicked behind us, and then he was everywhere, his warmth, his breath, closing in until there was nowhere left to go. You went to my mother, about ending the engagement. I nodded. Yeah, we already agreed, so I figured I'd be the one to say it, save you the trouble. Besides, wasn't he in love with Harper? I swallowed the thought. Some men turned vicious when their pride got bruised. I wasn't sure if Arthur was one of them. His fingers tipped my chin up again, and then his mouth was on mine. Warm, slow, devastating. His lips moved against mine until my head went blank, and he was the only thing I could feel. Resisting was not going well. Wait, wasn't he, weren't they? The thought of Harper jolted through me, and I shoved him back. He fell back onto the edge of the bed, his eyes dark with a desperate kind of hurt. So you're still going back to Julian? Should I tell him the truth? I'd been so busy lately that I hadn't even opened the game. I'd never finished. Julian's route. My silence must have looked damning because something in his expression hollowed out. Chloe, you want to leave me for him? I'll die before I let him have you. Chapter 12. How did we end up here? I was lying on the bed dazed, and the second my guard slipped, Arthur's hands were on me again. My fingers tightened in his hair just enough to make him draw in a sharp breath. He looked up at me, eyes dark with heat, lips slick and swollen. Could ex-fiancés do this? Was this allowed? And what about the FL? Was I betraying my friend right now? Panic hit me. I jumped off the bed, grabbed a tissue, wiped my mouth and started pulling my clothes back on, ignoring the dark, frustrated glare Arthur was giving me. We're not engaged anymore. Have some decency. You like Harper, so at least be loyal to her. That's like the bare minimum. Arthur's eyes narrowed and then he laughed. Who told you I liked her? Who else? The comments, obviously. I figured it out myself, thanks. Your condition improved the second she showed up, and you two were literally tucked away in a corner together just now. What was I supposed to think? Arthur sighed. Do you want to know what she and I were really talking about, and why did I shut down in the first place? Of course I wanted to know, but I wasn't going to say that. Arthur knew me too well. The second he opened his arms, I folded right into them. Wait, what just happened? Why is everything glitching? Did the author seriously stop updating? I shipped this couple so hard for nothing. Maybe the author decided the ML and FL are better off on their own lol. Honestly, fair. Why is this chapter locked now? Whatever, I'm done. The comments dissolved into static. All I could hear was Arthur's voice. When I was little, my dad died in a car accident. Mom couldn't take care of me by herself, so she left me with my grandfather. He paused. He brought women home, a lot of them. One night I went into his room to get a toy and I saw them together. The woman freaked out. She gagged me with a rag and locked me in the closet. His voice was steady, but his arms tightened around. I watched my grandfather and that woman through the slats. I couldn't look away, and I never told my mom. I didn't know how. After that I stopped talking, less and less until they labeled it autism. His jaw tightened. That's also why I hate being touched, why I can't stand feeling controlled. But with you, I surrendered that control to you a long time ago. Arthur pressed his cheek into my palm, nuzzling against it like something inside him had finally gone quiet. I hadn't known. I'd had no idea what was underneath all of it. No wonder he'd never been able to tell me, no wonder. Then what about Harper? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She's trying to steal you from me. I think that gives me every right to be pissed off. Just thinking about Harper made his jaw tighten. Her grandmother and my grandfather had an affair when they were young. He seduced her, slept with her, then left for the city. She got pregnant. The whole town turned on her, nearly ran her out of town. She had to get an abortion, then was married off to some stranger and died giving birth to Harper's father. He exhaled. Harper's here for payback. That was a lot. My jaw dropped, but Arthur pressed his fingers to my lips before I could react. You're sleeping in my bed tonight. A beat. No, you're sleeping in my bed from now on. Somewhere in the haze before sleep, one thought cut through. Wait, how was I going to explain this to Mrs. Sterling? How did we end up here? I was lying on the bed dazed, and the second my guard slipped, Arthur's hands were on me again. My fingers tightened in his hair just enough to make him draw in a sharp breath. He looked up at me, eyes dark with heat, lips slick and swollen. Could ex-fiancés do this? Was this allowed? And what about the FL? Was I betraying my friend right now? Panic hit me. I jumped off the bed, grabbed a tissue, wiped my mouth and started pulling my clothes back on, ignoring the dark, frustrated glare Arthur was giving me. We're not engaged anymore. Have some decency. You like Harper, so at least be loyal to her. That's like the bare minimum. Arthur's eyes narrowed and then he laughed. Who told you I liked her? Who else? The comments, obviously. I figured it out myself, thanks. Your condition improved the second she showed up, and you two were literally tucked away in a corner together just now. What was I supposed to think? Arthur sighed. Do you want to know what she and I were really talking about, and why did I shut down in the first place? Of course I wanted to know, but I wasn't going to say that. Arthur knew me too well. The second he opened his arms, I folded right into them. Wait, what just happened? Why is everything glitching? Did the author seriously stop updating? I shipped this couple so hard for nothing. Maybe the author decided the ML and FL are better off on their own, lol. Honestly, fair. Why is this chapter locked now? Whatever, I'm done. The comments dissolved into static. All I could hear was Arthur's voice. When I was little, my dad died in a car accident. Mom couldn't take care of me by herself, so she left me. With my grandfather, he paused. He brought women home, a lot of them. One night I went into his room to get a toy and I saw them together. The woman freaked out. She gagged me with a rag and locked me in the closet. His voice was steady, but his arms tightened around. I watched my grandfather and that woman through the slats. I couldn't look away, and I never told my mom. I didn't know how. After that I stopped talking, less and less, until they labeled it autism. His jaw tightened. That's also why I hate being touched, why I can't stand feeling controlled. But with you, I surrendered that control to you a long time ago. Arthur pressed his cheek into my palm, nuzzling against it like something inside him had finally gone quiet. I hadn't known. I'd had no idea what was underneath all of it. No wonder he'd never been able to tell me, no wonder. Then what about Harper? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She's trying to steal you from me. I think that gives me every right to be pissed off. Just thinking about Harper made his jaw tighten. Her grandmother and my grandfather had an affair when they were young. He seduced her, slept with her, then left for the city. She got pregnant. The whole town turned on her, nearly ran her out of town. She had to get an abortion, then was off to some stranger and died giving birth to Harper's father. He exhaled. Harper's here for payback. That was a lot. My jaw dropped, but Arthur pressed his fingers to my lips before I could react. You're sleeping in my bed tonight. A beat. No, you're sleeping in my bed from now on. Somewhere in the haze before sleep, one thought cut through. Wait, how was I going to explain this to Mrs. Sterling? Chapter 13. The next day, Harper told everyone the truth about what Arthur's grandfather had done. His reputation was destroyed overnight, and Mrs. Sterling finally learned what had made her son shut down all those years ago. She broke down in tears, and then had Arthur's grandfather shipped off to a remote care facility that same afternoon. Don't ever let him come back. I don't want to see his face again. The dust settled, and then it was time for Harper to go home. She came to say goodbye. Chloe, I hope you're happy for the rest of your life, and if he ever hurts you, I'm coming back to steal you myself. She murmured the last part into my shoulder. I blinked back the sting in my eyes. Deals. When Mrs. Sterling found out Arthur and I were back together, she wasn't nearly as thrilled as I'd expected. She looked at her son like he'd let her down. You're pathetic, you know that. You had to push her all the way to a breakup before you realized what you had. If you weren't my only son, I wouldn't even let her marry you. Now that Arthur was doing better, Mrs. Sterling had zero filter. I tried to hide my grin, but she grabbed my hand before I could even cover my mouth. Chloe, listen to me, men don't learn unless you make them sweat. If Arthur ever gives you trouble again, you come straight to me. Understood? I nodded, smiling, and looked at Arthur. For the first time, his face didn't look carved from ice. Something warm lived behind his eyes, something that had maybe always been there. That said, when he asked me to marry him immediately, I said no. He'd made me miserable for years. The least I could do was make him grovel a little. When my parents found out the engagement was back on, their reaction was immediate. Oh my God, you really are a lost cause. Send.